All right, as we come down to chapter 8 of the book of Romans, we've come to the end result of salvation by faith. Chapter 8 deals with how that the blessings that there is the salvation by faith. Now tonight, we're not going to go back and rehearse anything about salvation by faith. We're just going to start out where we here ended up this last time. But if you'll notice, the last time we ended up with this chart. And that is in Romans chapter 8 and verse 17. It says, "And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ." So that's what we have if we are truly children of God. We have that tremendous blessing of being heirs of God. But then, notice how that verse goes ahead and ends up. It says, "If so be that we suffer with him." And so it puts a condition on it, "If so be that we suffer in him, that we may be also glorified with him." So what Paul is saying here is that he has told this first 8 chapters telling us how that we're saved by faith, and then the glory of being saved. Now then, he puts a stipulation on it. And that is, you're not an heir of God just without any consideration whatsoever. There is something that you're going to have to do. Well, what is it? It says, "If so be, we suffer with him." Now that is where we begin tonight then. As we start in this chapter, it's going to be dealing with suffering and hope. That's the two things it will be dealing with. Now I want you to remember that right now. I want you to embed that in your mind. And the reason why is because we're going to be dealing with some very interesting verses. Some verses that are difficult to understand. And to them, why we'll probably forgot what we're dealing with. And so I want you to understand that the thing that we're dealing with is suffering and hope. First of all, he's going to be talking about suffering. Then he's going to turn it in to hope. So tonight it is suffering and hope. Now, it's always been necessary for our salvation. This again is something we need to understand even before Paul tells us that suffering is necessary for our salvation. Suffering and hope are tied together. As you go through the Bible, you will find suffering and hope tied, interlinked together. Now we might say, well, how are they interlinked together? Why would they be interlinked together? Well, we'll see that they are. Now it may sound like a philosophical argument that I'm going to be saying up here, but it's a Bible teaching, and this is what we're going to find out. That is, you can't be saved without hope. Now down in verse 24, it's going to tell us that. So there's no question about it. By hope are you saved. Now you're not going to be saved without hope. We'll get back to make a mention of it in a minute. You can't have hope without suffering. Now that may strike us a little funny. You can't have hope without suffering. Yeah, that's right. You can't have hope without suffering. Therefore, suffering is good for us. Now, this is what we're going to be able to put together and what we're going to be able to see here. And of course, the hard thing is, I think, is that you can't have hope without suffering for us to see that particular thing there. First of all, we'll need to understand what hope really is. But let's notice this. Let's notice the Bible teaches it. Whether we understand it or not, the Bible teaches it. In Romans 5, and not only so, but we also rejoice in our tribulations. What are tribulations? Knowing that tribulations, what are tribulations? It's hard stuff, isn't it? It's problems. It's problems that we have. It's suffering. Knowing the tribulation work of steadfastness, steadfastness approvedness, and approvedness hope. Now, as you read that verse, how would you say that you really get hope? How you go about it if you want to follow that verse? What's the first thing you would need to do? Suffering is going to have to be in there. As strange as it may sound. James says, "Count it all joy, my brethren, when you fall into manifold temptations." Now that's the same word as trials or tribulations. So when you fall into these manifold tribulations, a lot of troubles, count it all joy. Now, what a strange thing for James to say. How many of you, when you've had a lot of troubles and trials, that you said, oh, great. Monica, when you were diagnosed with cancer not too long ago, I'm sure that as soon as he said that, you said, wonderful. Oh, you didn't? Why? Wonder why she didn't. Well, no, none of us would do that. See, none of us would do that. And Paul is not saying when you have these tribulations that you just say, oh, isn't this great? This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Monica says, I get to take chemo every week or two. I get to be in misery for days and days without end. I get to be sick every week. Isn't this wonderful? That's not what he's talking about. Now, what he's talking about is this. Knowing that your manifold temptations, that the proving of your faith worketh patience. And let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, lacking in nothing. He's saying about the same things he said there a minute ago. If you want to really be mature, you want to develop your faith, he says, it's going to take suffering. Now, tonight, just on this and going to go into it and talk about it to any great length. But let me say this, that the only thing that you have that is of real value is something you've suffered for. It's not something that somebody gave you. That's the reason why that if you inherit a lot of money, what happens to people? 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, more than that. What happens when they inherit a lot of money? Do they really appreciate it? See? No, they don't appreciate it. Now, unless you have suffered for something, you don't have a true appreciation for it. It's just that simple. You think about all the parties. We can ask Monica, since we can pick on her tonight because she's right in the middle of this treatment. Monica, how many parties have you gone to? Just had a ball. I mean a real fun time. And then you come home and you look back and you say, you know, the thing that really has developed me is those parties. Can you give me one? Now, all the parties she's ever been to, all the laughing she's ever done, all the fun she's ever had, and she's been to a lot of those parties. Within 24 hours, it's gone. There's nothing that's lasting there. Now here, though, when you come into suffering, here's what suffering will do for you. Suffering will change you, and you can't help it. Suffering will change you, and it'll either be for the better or for the worse. It just depends on how you handle it. But Monica will never, ever, ever again be the same woman she was when she walked in that doctor's office and he told her, you have cancer. Never again. Now, it can either make her bitter and ugly and mean, or she can suffer through it, and as she suffers through it, she will begin to see the values of life. She will begin to see things she has never seen in her life before. And when she gets through with this, she will have something that you and I, who've never gone through that, we can't comprehend. We can't understand it. And when you talk to her and she says, well, I tell you, when I went through that cancer treatment, it changed my life and it made me a better person. We'll all look at her and say, sure, yeah. How could that be? Because we don't know. We haven't walked in it. Boy, I wish you could give me the secret. Without suffering. Now remember, I don't want to suffer, see. But without suffering, I wish you could give me the secret so that in the next 6 months, I will learn everything Monica has already learned and will learn in the next 6 months. Wouldn't that be something? If we could do that? It can't be done. There's only one way that I can learn that, and that is by suffering. And you take out any suffering that you want to in this life, and you will see it's either made you a better person or it's made you a worse person. And suffering is what will develop you, mature you, so that you can be what it says here, perfect, entire, lacking in nothing. Lacking in nothing. Hebrews 12, God tells all the people he receives, he said, regard not lightly the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art reproved of him. For whom the Lord loveth he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. It is for chastening that you endure, or it's because of chastening that you endure. None of us would be able to endure, go through this life, be faithful, if it were not for the problems that come in our life. Now we can see that with our kids. How many children are born into this world? They grow up to be absolutely wonderful adults, perfect in every way, fully matured, seeing life as it really is, never having any correction from their parents. Anybody knowing that? See? No? You say it never happened. Well, what makes that child grow up and be that mature individual? It's the corrections that the parents gave him. And when the child receives correction, even when they see an ice cream cone and they want an ice cream cone, and the parent denies it to the child, how's the child feel? Just about, the world has disintegrated, hasn't it? The world has disintegrated because he didn't get his ice cream. Now, there may be a couple of reasons why you didn't get that child an ice cream. All of you ugly, mean parents who have told your child, no, you can't have it. Why did you do that? How many of you did it because you hate your kid? No, that didn't happen. How many of you done it because you know that you're going to have dinner in just a little while, the child eats ice cream now, they won't eat dinner, and it's the best for the child's health if you don't get ice cream right now? Does that ever happen to you? Huh? Oh, yeah, see? Oh, yeah, that's happened. How many has ever happened of where the child is just spoiled? Of course, I didn't have any spoiled brats, so I wouldn't understand this. But you got spoiled brats. And they're crying, and they're working you. And if they can't get something, they throw a temper tantrum. And so you're driving down the road. They want an ice cream cone. No, you can't have one now. They throw a temper tantrum. And you don't go in and get them an ice cream cone in order to teach them a lesson. Does that ever happen? Yeah. See? That's the only thing that will cause an individual to grow up and be matured. So as we look at this, we see it's not just a philosophical thing, but it's a Bible teaching that we've got. Now, he said, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time, that's easy for us to understand so far, are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed to usward. That's easy to understand. He said, I reckon, I take into account the suffering we do right now is not even to be compared with all the glory that we will have in an eternity. We can take that back to our children. As you go back to your children, what will happen to a child that's left undisciplined, gets everything that it wants to get? When it throws a temper tantrum, it's given whatever it wants, no correction from the parents. When the child reaches, what kind of a child will it be? Now I want you to visualize that spoiled adult. What kind of a life will that man live or woman live the rest of their life? Everybody will hate them. It'll be a bad life. It'll upset them. And so if you told your kids, I know all of us have told them, you know, you spank them, that old adage, this hurts me worse than it does you. Now, if you told the children, look, I'm going to do this for the first 18 years of your life, kid. I'm going to control you. I'm going to watch over you. I'm going to chasten you. I'm going to deny you things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And all the suffering you do now, it's not even worthy to be compared with all of the glory and fun you will have in your adult years. How many 6-year-old children would understand that? No. Give me the ice cream now. Isn't that it? See, that's what we want. All right, that's what Paul is saying. Now, a lot of us don't understand this any more than a 16-year-old, or I mean a 6-year-old. He says, all the suffering you do now, I don't care how deep it is, it's not even worthy to even compare with what you're going to have out there because you've suffered here and it's made you. Paul puts it another way when he talks about, as we are growing older, wherefore we faint not, don't give up, but though our outward man is decaying, yet our inward man is renewed day by day. And he goes ahead to explain that while we see this suffering now, which is just a light affliction, and it worketh for us, so we'll have a tremendously heavy reward over on the other side. So he said, we Christians, as we go through life, we don't set our sights upon things that are seen. Those are physical. We set our sights upon things that are not seen, which is spiritual. So he says the same thing right here. So now, let's start out. Here it is in verses 19 through 23. I'm going to read you what a commentator said, and it's true. He said, verses 19 through 23 have given commentators no end of trouble. None has given an explanation that was satisfactory to all. He said there's never been a man found yet that's written a book or anything that can explain some of these things that everybody says, oh, I see it. I see it. Now, the main trouble is in determining the meaning and application of the terms, and I want you to look at those terms. We're going to be talking about the creation, the whole creation, the first fruits of the Spirit, and we ourselves. Now, we're going to have to determine what those things mean. Now, this one, I think most of us understand, we ourselves. We understand what that means. But as we go back up, the first fruits of the Spirit, what's that talking about? Or the whole creation, or the creation. Now, when you see the word creation, or you hear the word creation, I bet you that every one of us thinks about one thing. What do you think about, Mitch? What? Adam and Eve and creation back there. God spoke it into existence. That's what we think about, isn't it? That was the creation of God. Now, God created the entire physical universe. But God also created something else. What's the other thing He created? Kind of interesting. So keep your ears open. There's something else that he created. And we're going to have to try to determine, what is it? What is this creation? Now, by the way, when I'm telling you that there's two things that God created, and He calls them both His creation, uses the same name, we've got a problem of determining which one He talks about, don't we? Suppose that I told you that I have a friend by the name of Jim who lives in Snohomish. And I have a friend by the name of Jim who is preaching in the Philippines. Now, the other day, I was talking to Jim, and Jim told me, what's your problem so far? Which Jim? Right? Which Jim? Now, if I told you that Jim said, life in the Philippines is tough, that gives you a context, and you say, oh, that's talking about the one in the Philippines. See? But if I don't give you anything in the context, you have to try to determine what's he talking about? Which one's he talking about? That's what we're going to try to wrestle with, and that's what gives us confusion really in here. And I'm going to give you both of them. Creation is speaking of the physical universe, like Mitchell said. That's the first thing that comes to our mind. So we read this and we say, oh, it's the world. It's the creation out here. But now there's something else that's called a creation, and that is the church that's filled full of Christians. God calls that His creation. And so we're going to have to determine which one of those creations is it that He's talking about that is in here. Now the first here, this is that the creation is all of the physical creation of God. The sun, the moon, stars, the antelope, rattlesnakes, everything that God has created. Now, then it is taught that Paul personifies the world just as the prophets did. Now, by the word personify, it means that he takes these non-human things and treats them as though they are humans or as though they are persons. He'll take a tree and make it act like that it is a person. Now, they do this. This is logic. Here it is, talking about the glory of God. God is so great, the psalmist said, let the floods clap their hands and let the hills sing for joy together. That's how much glory God should get. The floods clap their hand. Well, can a flood clap its hand? Or can a hills sing? We understand what he means here. He's talking about God is so deserving of glory, let everything in the universe glorify him. And Isaiah said, for ye shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth before you into singing. God said, I'm going to bless you so much that as you go by, the mountains and the hills will break forth in singing. Wow. This is what's called a hyperbole. It's figure of speech. It's personifying inanimate things. It's doing this to show the greatness of God. Ezekiel says the same thing. And all the trees of the field fainted for him. Now the problem with this is this. In Romans 8:21, it says that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the liberty of the glory of the children of God. Now here's the problem we got. We're going to read in here how that this creation has been subjected to vanity. It really has no hope, and all of a sudden, this creation is going to have hope. Now I want to read it before we go any farther. Let's read it. Think about it. Now we're going to start in verse 19. For the earnest expectation of the creation waiteth for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to vanity, not of its own will, but by reason of him who subjected it, in hope. In hope that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption unto the liberty of the glory of the children of God. Now, if this is talking about the physical creation, here's a problem we got. And that is that the creation has been subjected to vanity. Before we go any farther, has the creation of God, this world, been subjected to vanity? Was it the subject of the curse? Remember Adam and Eve? And it was, wasn't it? It didn't have sticker bushes until Adam and Eve sinned. And so it was cursed. So that part would be fine. Yeah, so we've already got that. Now, not of its own will, but reason of him who subjected it in hope. Now then, we've got the thing here. Is the world hoping to get out of this mess it's in? Are the antelope and the deer and the rattlesnakes and the trees and the rocks, are they hoping for one day to receive the glory here of the children of God? It said that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption. So the trees and the mountains are hoping. And they're looking forward to being delivered from the bondage of corruption. Kind of loses us there, doesn't it? See? With that verse. And we say, well, I don't see how they would all have hope. Well, not unless it's all personified, and even then it's hard to put it together to see. That's a problem with saying it's the physical universe. Let's go to the other and try to put the other in here, and then we'll try to make up our mind what we're dealing with. The creation is the spiritual creation of God. That is, it's the church or it's Christians. Let's look at some verses to make sure this is true, what I'm saying. Paul said, wherefore, if any man is in Christ, he is a new creature. That's the same word That's creation. You are a new creation. God has taken you, who was in sin, totally corrupt, and He created a new thing. He created a Christian. Then, in Ephesians 2:10, for we are His workmanship. Talking about the church now, the Christians, we are His workmanship. That's just like you could say the 747 is the workmanship of Boeing. They've made it. Now, God has made us a workmanship created in Christ. That's where we have been created. Now, Boeing took a whole bunch of metal. They put it all in a building over here in Everett. They built that great big building, biggest in the world there. They took all that metal and they put in that building, and after 30 days or whatever it is, what did they roll out when they opened the doors? 747. Now that's what God did with you and me. He took us useless sinners, and when He got through with us, we are a new creation. Instead of living the way Satan himself lives, full of lying and cheating and stealing and doing all these things, when God got through and we're now a new creature, what kind of a creature are we? What are we like? We're just like whom? We're like Christ Himself. See? We're like Christ. We're His. He created us in Christ. So the church, or Christians, are called creation. Having abolished in His place the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinance, that He might create in Himself. Now what did Christ do? He did away with the old law there that written in those ordinances. He did away with it, that He might create in Himself of the two one new man. Now who are these two? You have to know the context, but everybody in here knows it, almost everybody. Who are the two? Jew and Gentile. He took the Jew and the Gentile, whether you're a Jew or a Gentile, and He made one new man. And that new man He called the church. That new thing He called the church then. Now the problem with this is, and here's what gives people, that cause them to scratch their head. Okay, so they say, okay, so that's right. Now in verse 23, we hit a stumbling block here that makes us say, is that what he's talking about? So now let's start and let's read, I'll start in verse 21. Verse 20, it says the creation, I'm going to say spiritual creation now. For God's spiritual creation, His church, was subjected to vanity. That is, are people in the church, by the way, do we die? Do we have diseases? Do we wither away? Do we have problems? Do we suffer the curse that God put on the world back in Adam and Eve's day? Yeah, we've got that. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you skip over that part. No, you're subjected to that just like everybody else. So 21, that the creation itself, that is the church, also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the liberty of the glory of the children of God. So now here it is, the church. We have this hope that we will be delivered from this bondage of corruption. Get out of this physical body. Get out of the physical corruption we're in. One thing about a Christian, you live in this world, you're sick and you die, you have money problems, you get your hands cut, you pick a blackberry, what happens to you? You get a sticker. See? Now, one of these days, you're going to change from here to there. And how many stickers are going to be on a blackberry bush there? No, you're not going to suffer there. See, that's what it's saying here. Now, he said this, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together unto now. That would be, we know the whole church groaneth and travaileth together. Are we, as we go through life, do we sing any songs about life on the other side of the river? Why do we have those songs? It's to give us hope. We say we look for another day. And so we're looking for that. Now here's the problem. And not only so, but ourselves also, who have received the first fruits of the Spirit. Now look at verse 22. In verse 22, the way I'm explaining it, we're talking about the church. We're talking about Christians, right? Everybody see that in verse 22? We're talking about Christians. Not only so, but we also ourselves. Who's that? So we'd say, that sounds like Christians. Well, if verse 22 is talking about Christians, verse 23 can't be. Because verse 22 says, we Christians are groaning. All of us Christians are groaning. And in 23, and it says, and not only so, not only are all the Christians groaning, but we ourselves, all the Christians are groaning. Do you see the problem I'm putting out to you? So people read it, and they say, see, it can't be because it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense in reading it that way. Okay, I'm going to put one word up here, and we'll take a look at it, and we can see this will answer the question if we put it up. Who are the fruits of the Spirit? Suppose they're the apostles. Now, as we go back, let's pick it up and see if this fits the Bible pattern. God created the church. What day did He create the church? First Pentecost after the resurrection of Christ. Each one of us is a new creation put into the church. The church is the whole creation. Now, we got the whole creation here. It says, and not only so, but we ourselves also, we apostles, who have received the first fruits of the Spirit. Who were the first ones to receive the Holy Spirit in any form, shape, or manner? The apostles, wasn't it? See? They're the ones that were baptized in the Holy Pentecost. They're the ones that were guided by the Holy Spirit. So let's read it now like this and see if this makes sense. Let's start in verse 22. For we know that the whole creation, the whole church, groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only so, but ourselves also, that is the apostles, who have received the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for our adoption. So Paul says it's not just the whole church that's doing it, but it's us apostles doing it exactly the way the church is doing it. Do you see that? Any questions there? Uh-huh. I think the we starts right here in verse 23, being the apostles, the way I would understand it. Well, no, I don't think so. The way, see, this is the problem you got here in trying to do this. I think that Paul, the way I'd understand it is this, that we, the apostles, are the ones who receive the first fruits of the Spirit. We ourselves groan within ourselves to wit the redemption of the body. Then, he says, for in hope were we saved. Now, if I'm just going to take that, grammatically speaking, I couldn't answer your question that you asked. See? But when you talk about hope, where is it all the way through the Bible? Who is it that is to have hope? See? So it's not only apostles, but it's all of us. So I think verse 24 would revert back to that. Now I want to assure you, this is a difficult passage of Scripture to understand. And if you say, I understand it, maybe that means you don't. That's the way I am. I read it, oh boy, this is tough. Because when we hear that word creation, we fixate on the physical creation. When you fix on the physical creation, then you've got to have the physical creation that is now groaning, just like the people in the church, groaning for our redemption. And that doesn't make sense. What is going to happen to the physical universe, according to Peter? It's going to be burned up, isn't it? It's going to be burned up. So, the way I understand it then, what he's saying then would be in that way. I want you to look up here at this, and here's the way we'd read it, because I'm going to add. Now, in black, we have the inspired text. Then when you come down to the blue, we have my comments. And the red is the word we're defining. For the creation, meaning the church containing Christians, was subjected to vanity, not of its own will, but by reason of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation, the church, itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption unto the liberty of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation, whole church, groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only so, but ourselves also, that is, us apostles, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting our adoption, to wit, or to know, the redemption of the body. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I apologize because I haven't made it clear. But it's the best I can do. And so what I'm saying there is, if you say, why don't you make it clearer? I can't. I don't know how to do it. And both sides of this thing has some legitimate arguments. So I want you to understand that. And so to be dogmatic, I'm not dogmatic about it. I tell you what I think, but I'm not dogmatic about it. But here is what I can tell you. It doesn't make any difference which position it is. Doesn't make any difference which it is. Now, Paul's talking about one or the other. I'm not saying he's talking about two things. He's talking about one or the other. But it doesn't make any difference which one he is. Here's what he's dealing with. I want you to notice here in verse 17, what was the word we started out with? If so be that we what? Suffer. Okay. Now look in verse 24, what is the next word? Hope. Okay. And we put them together. So now, I don't care whether he's talking about the physical universe. If he is, here's what he's saying. He's saying, we Christians have to suffer with Christ because we have all under this curse back in Adam's time. We're all going to die. We're all going to suffer. We're all going to have diseases. We all look for the time of when we can get out of this body and we can have that perfection that there is in heaven. That's what he's saying. If he's talking about the spiritual, which I think he is, then he's saying that we must suffer. That is, all of the church, all of us must suffer. We have been put under that particular curse. Christians are going to suffer just like everybody else, and even the apostles are going to suffer. But he said, here's what you get out of it. If you suffer, you're going to become heirs of God, for we have hope. Okay? We have hope. So it doesn't make any difference which way you take it. We're going from the suffering to hope and tie them together. Okay? Now, is there any questions that you can ask, and I'll defer them to Harry? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not that I know of. Mitch asked if there's any questionable doctrines that's taught out of this. Generally speaking, you find where a verse is hard to be understood, that there's some religion that will pick something up and build it on that particular verse. Not that I know of. Mm-hmm. Okay, now then, notice this in verse 24. For in hope were we saved. Now we've come to an unusual statement. For in hope were we saved. So let's look at this now. As we, and there for this, gave the statement's up there. No, I'm not going to skip over it. I was going to skip over it. The first statement. When God subjected his creation to vanity, it was a blessing to mankind because it gave man a new motivating factor without which he could not be saved. Now, this is an interesting thing. When Adam and Eve sinned, and God told them, the day thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And you're going to make your living by the sweat of your brow. And women are going to bear children in pain. There was a curse came upon the world. There was a curse came upon men, and a curse came upon women. And everybody's going to die. Did God do us a favor that day or not? So oftentimes we think, God put a pretty stiff penalty on there. Wish he hadn't have done that about death. Did death have to come? Is that a little bit too severe? What I've got up here is God did us a favor. God did us a favor. Well, he said, the day thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. You say, what favor is it? Okay, let me ask you this. How would you like to live in a world? Let's suppose God didn't put death out there in the Garden of Eden. Now, there's no death. Now then, man has sinned, and due to sin, all of these problems are coming upon us. We get sick. We have all these problems of making the living by the sweat of our brow, all the pain, all of the diseases, all these things that's coming. But one thing we don't have to worry about is we're not going to die. We're going to live here forever. How would you like to live here for a couple thousand years in tremendous pain? Now, you may have good health now and not have any pain, but run over to the hospital. Run over to the children's hospital. And you look at these people in just excruciating pain. Pat them on the head and say, hey, I have a pill here where I can extend your life for 2,000 years. No, I don't want it. Well, how about 100,000 years? I can fix you up so you'll never die. What is the greatest blessing God could do for us? See? He said, you shall die. Now, when he says you're going to die, how's that make you feel? How's that make you feel? To find out that you're going to die. And I want you to put yourself back in the Garden of Eden. How much did Adam and Eve know about Jesus Christ? Not a word. What did they know about the church or the Bible? Not a word. They didn't know anything, see, about that. That all was in God's plan of salvation that he would be revealing there. Now, what happens, though, when all of a sudden you find out there's no hope? You're going to die. Your life is going to be filled with problems. Remember, Job said, man's days are soon gone and full of problems. Your life is going to be full of problems. Headaches, heartaches, of every different kind, sickness, illness, pain. What's the one thing that you want when you've got all that suffering? When you've got a toothache, you go to a dentist, you get a root canal, and you got a real bad toothache, and you're sitting at home and it's just throbbing. What do you do that night? How many of you sit there and say, boy, this is nice. I know that pain will go away, a few days like this. Or do you call your doctor and say, hey, can you give me a painkiller? What is it that you want? When you are in that deep pain, have a real bad toothache, what do you want? You want relief, don't you? Suppose there's hope. And you call the doctor and he says, oh, you're in excruciating pain? No problem. Come up and I'll give you a pill. It'll take it away from you and you'll not have any pain the rest of the night. What would you do? Is that a motivating factor for you? When you're in pain, suffering, hope is the thing that you're after. If there's no hope, life is over. The most miserable person in the world is a person without hope. So life is over. What suffering does for you is it causes you to have hope. Causes you to have hope. You don't have hope if you don't have suffering. How many of you hope that you are saved from an earthquake that just happened 10 minutes ago? How many of you are sitting here saying, "Whew, boy, isn't that nice? Earthquake in Indonesia." No. What would happen if we had an earthquake and this building came down on you? What would all of us be doing right now, 10 minutes ago? I hope, and we'd be crying, wouldn't we? And yelling, "Save me." Why? Hope. Now, you'll keep crying as long as you have hope. You'll keep picking up a rock and knocking two rocks together as long as you have hope. When do you quit trying? When there's no hope. You cannot be saved without hope. Why? It's really simple. Why can't you be saved without hope? Because you will not try. You will not try. A person that has no hope is not going to try to save themselves from anything. So God did us a blessing. God did us a blessing in that He placed that curse upon us, a very painful curse, so that we will have a hope, a desire of getting out of this thing. And then when God provided the way through Jesus Christ, we can grab it. The people with hope are the people that grabbed it. See? They're the people that grabbed it. So, hope is really a big word. Now, next week, we're going to start out, we're going to define the word hope, and we'll see how it all works together, because that's what this whole passage really is about. It's about suffering. Paul's telling you, you're going to have to suffer through life till the end of your days. Some people, like Monica, will have to suffer as she's doing now with a physical disease. Some of us may never have a physical disease and we get killed in an automobile accident. But how many of you, I want you to raise your hand now, how many of you who's never suffered a day in your life? Now, as you look at this, we've all suffered to some degree. And the people who've suffered the most are the ones who have the greatest hope and the greatest desire to be pleasing to Him. That's the interesting thing. So hope is a big, big word. But that's where we'll start next week. Class dismissed.